Wow, look at this thing. Look at this build. This is total insanity. Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is Boost My Build, the series where we take your PC part picker list, we tear them up, we put them back together, and we massively increase your performance. This month we've got mid-range builds that are performing like low-end budget builds, and we've got 4K Godzilla builds, but is this the time to build them, or should you consider waiting for Ryzen 7000? Remember, if you get value out of this video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump. We've got JS Plays. JS wants to build their very first gaming PC after many years of waiting. They want the RTX 3080 Aorus Master 12GB. Okay, that's bold at this point right now. We'll talk about that. Gaming, content creation, streaming, budgets anywhere from $2,700 to $3,250 max. They want to overclock their CPU and GPU, and they've got a bunch of monitors in there. They want our opinion on them. Okay, it sounds like you're looking to do a Godzilla build. We'll talk a little bit about what that means to do right now in August of 2022 with new stuff coming down the pike. Wow, look at this thing. Look at this build. This is total insanity. Fans and fans and fans and fans. Look at all these fans. This is totally insane. I'd love to just, okay, as a beginner, if you have a build with 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fans, 12 RGB fans, you should just stop. Stop what you're doing. You've gone too far. But let's take a step back before we even jump in that, because this is a $3,755 build. You're already over your budget, although I guess your monitors aren't supposed to be included. Still, I feel like that's a lot of money to spend right now in this environment on somewhat 2-year-old technology. So let's talk about who should be building right now. So if you're building a build that's $1,500 or less, I think no problem whatsoever. Move forward. That means you're going to use a GPU and likely a CPU that you're not going to really want to replace for a while. And Ryzen 5000 and the current crop of GPUs is probably fine for that. We're only going to see like RTX 4090, maybe the 4080 and 4070 this year, but probably actual availability where you can actually buy it and not have to scramble for one into January. So you got a long time. And if you're buying an RX 6600 XT, don't worry, that GPU is not going to be replaced for probably a year, maybe even longer. That being said, if you are looking to build something on the higher end, especially I see a Ryzen 9 5900X, that CPU is going to be eclipsed pretty quickly. So that's one thing to think about here in terms of who should be building right now and who should be waiting. If you're at the high end, and this is a high end, I would likely be waiting. That being said, I think we can do something about this to give you a build that might take into account not having to wait, being able to build now, and being able to upgrade a little bit as some of this stuff comes out. Other thing I'm going to say about this build is first-time builders often do this. They want to overclock. They want all the fans. They want all the things. And you don't realize the complexity of the build because you just don't have the experience. It's understandable. This is a horribly complex build. I don't even see like RGB fan controllers in here. You've got 12 fans. How are you going to hook them all up? Just a lot of things that you probably haven't had to think about before. And it's going to be a total mess. I would focus on getting something, forget the overclocking, everything. I would focus on putting together a kick butt build that you can plug and play and as easily as possible that's gonna reach like 90% of what you're looking for here. And then as you gain some experience doing it, you'll be able to upgrade and tweak in the future. All right, let's go through the actual build. Ryzen 9 5900X CPU, $389, not a terrible price, but I wouldn't be putting a 5900X in, likely to be eclipsed by the Ryzen 7000 CPUs launching, in the next month or two. AMD's going to announce that they just announced their press conference that they're going to hold at the end of August. They'll probably get pricing and availability and all that kind of stuff and some performance figures. Imagine building a build with a 3900X right before Ryzen 5000 came out. You kind of feel a little silly, right? And then we've got a 420 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. This is going to be super heavy to install, by the way. Just things that you probably aren't thinking about when you buy stuff like this, and it completely blows out the kind of cases that you're able to get. The other thing is the 5900X does not need this level of cooling. This is total insane overkill. And if you just want the LCD cool screen, there's cheaper coolers. I do like the Gigabyte B550 Aorus Pro AC, premium board, premium features for $180. One thing, you do have two sets of 2x8 gigabytes, so that's 4x8 gigabyte sticks of DDR4 4000 CL18 memory. And the thing that if you watch our best memory video, then you know that when you have 4 sticks, it's harder on the memory controller than 2. And when you're running at that 4000 speed, that's really kind of the max for Ryzen right there, or even 12th gen Intel, to be quite honest. So I would back off to 3600 CL16 here instead. 2 terabyte hard drive, I feel like this is what people often throw in builds when they don't know how to get more storage space. And one of the reasons we don't know how to get more storage space, I feel like we're spending a lot on this Samsung 980 Pro. It's a Gen 4 drive, but $140 for like not that much more. We could get a fast Gen 3 drive with 2 terabytes of storage instead. The graphics card is a great graphics card, but the price right now is absolutely terrible for it. And especially because 3080s, there's probably no more production of them for sure. And the last ones are in the channel right now. I would just be looking to get the cheapest one you can. This case is going to add a huge amount of complexity to your build. I absolutely do love it. Corsair 7000D. I know why you picked it, because it'll fit that 420 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler, but this is not something I would recommend for a beginner, especially at $220. And then we've got the fan situation. Again, a zillion fans, and we don't have any controllers or anything for that. I think it's going to be a little bit of a mess to do all these fans. It's going to completely overwhelm a first-time builder. You're looking at days of cable management, especially for a first-timer. I don't mind the PSU, but I think 850 watts, a little light, but Corsair RMX units, A-tier rated. It's a good unit overall. I just think we're a little light here. For the monitors, listen, the G7 I really do like is a great 1440p gaming monitor. In fact, it's my continued pick for high FPS, high refresh rate, 1440p gaming monitor. However, it's a very aggressive 1000R curvature on it. It's not something I would recommend for content creation, so that's one thing I would think about. And the only other monitor that we have is this kind of really a monitor I'm not a big fan of. It's an okay-ish 1080p monitor, so I kind of feel like our monitors are a little mismatched, and I'd probably just instead combine these together and get one really great, maybe a 4K high refresh monitor instead. So for almost $3,800, for $3,755, I just feel like we're coming up with a horribly complex build that you are going to be super frustrated trying to put together and make work. I'd rather we simplify the heck out of this build and get you something that you feel really good about putting together. So I call this the Lean and Mean Godzilla build, and this is the Intel version. I did a Ryzen version as well. I'll show you in just a second. The only difference is the CPU and the motherboard. So let's go through this build, and then you can decide which one is best for you. $2,888. That's right, under $2,900, and I have included an amazing Samsung Odyssey G7 28-inch 4K high refresh rate monitor. We use this for both gaming and for video editing on our channel. We absolutely love this monitor. You can also get the Gigabyte M28U. To me, it is worth the extra $120 because the Gigabyte M28U is on sale for $500. I'll leave both of them linked down in the video description. You can decide which one you want. I do like this one. I do think it's worth the extra money. I went with the i7 12700K. You could also go with the 12600K. However, I want to get you something that's slightly more future-proof right now, especially given all the stuff that's likely to come out. Now, this is not going to have the same gaming performance as the Ryzen 5800X 3D, which, spoiler alert, is the CPU in the other build. However, it's going to give you great multi-threaded. I think this one might hold up in terms of the multi-threaded a little bit better than the 5800X 3D, and you can overclock this one where you can't overclock the 5800X 3D. We cut the cooler down, same cooler model. Basically, we just went with the 360 millimeter version. For the 12700K, you probably I would go 360 on it, but for the 5800X 3D, you're not gonna need, you could definitely go with a 240 version of this instead. And let me tell you, when you're installing these things, just the decrease in weight, you're gonna thank me for that. The motherboard, we went with the Z690 Aorus Elite AX. You could also, there's a couple other boards that I would also consider here. I believe it's the ASRock Extreme Wi-Fi board for about $190. This board I'm just a little bit more familiar with, but another really good one. I would look for the ALC 1220 audio codec, which this has, and this has support for up to 4 M.2s. I think in the long term, the extra additional storage you're going to be able to put in here for content creation is going to pay dividends. For the memory, we came down to 3600 CL16 memory. We got you a 4x8 kit, so this is actually just rated all and tuned to run together. shouldn't have any issues plugging and playing this memory. And I feel much more comfortable recommending this than getting two separate 4000 speed kits that are a little fast and you may have to do some manual tuning for. For the drive, for just like $30 more, we went with a 970 Evo Plus 2 terabytes. So we're gonna get you double the amount of storage, and it's still fast Gen 3 storage. It's gonna absolutely smoke it. You're probably never gonna notice the difference in anything that you do, and you're gonna definitely notice the difference in having 2 times the amount of storage. I did take off the hard drive you had in here. You can throw it back in if you want. I just, I figured do this, and if you want, add another one of these instead. For the graphics card, we just went with the cheapest RTX 3080 12GB. Right now, there's no reason to spend a lot of extra money on some of those more souped up models like the Aorus model. You're not gonna, I don't think, see the performance difference for the price. This one, just a kind of standard EVGA overclocked the XC3 Ultra model for about $720, but that's what I would focus on. Just find the cheaper RTX 3080. You could even consider just getting a cheaper 3070 and save up those ducats until the 4080 comes out next year and then swap in that instead. For the case though, I just chucked all those fans out the window, man. We do not need to spend $200 on fans, $300 on fans. We don't need to spend $200 on a case. Instead, we went with, for $130, the Corsair iQ 4000X. It comes with 3 pre-installed ARGB fans, nothing to mess around with. We're gonna put one fan right here in the rear, and then we're gonna top mount that AIO, and you could either do it with the 240 or the 360. I would feel a little bit better if you go 240 on this, just because you can orient it better. However, for the 1200K, I'd definitely go with the 360. For the power supply, I really cranked this up. I'm rethinking, given how much power these GPUs are obviously gonna require, I have rethought my methodology around this that I put together back in 2021. Obviously, we're gonna need more and more power, and I'm thinking that 1300 watts, especially for someone like you, is gonna wanna overclock things, kind of tinker with things in the future. You're gonna be able to put a 4090 in here in the future, and I feel pretty good about that. So I decided, it's a B tier unit. It's not bad, but it's also not bad priced either, and it's fully modular. $169 for 1300 watts of power. We got you one 120 millimeter fan for the rear exhaust of the case, and for $2,888, that's right, $2,900, we got you a system with more performance than what you were looking at, that's gonna allow you to upgrade over time, that could throw in an RTX 4080 when you're able to get one, maybe in early 2023, or even a 4070. Who knows what the performance is gonna be. And it's gonna give you something to do right now so you can get going. If you are looking for the Ryzen version of the Godzilla build here, I simply went with a 5800X3D. Don't need the 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. You could certainly go with a 240 instead. That's what personally I would recommend that you do. The LCD screen is the same size, it's just a different size of the cooler. And then we did stick it out with your Gigabyte B550 Aorus Pro AC motherboard, because it's a great motherboard. And this one, $2,938. The difference between this and the i7 build is this is gonna give you slightly more gaming performance because of that 3D V cache, and I think over time will probably hold up better in terms of getting the max FPS. So I hope you feel like your build is boosted. We've got Nenin. It's Nenin's first PC build. I feel like we got so many new first-time PC builders. I think it's the time of year, to be quite honest. And they want to use it mostly for gaming, Sims 4, Minecraft, The Last of Us 2, Detroit Being Human, and work, but they also have plans to possibly start being YouTube and doing some video editing. And they want to get this all done for $1,200. They are in the US. Let's see what you got, Nenin. Okay, you finished out $1,209. You're $10 over your budget, big deal. And I kind of like what I'm seeing. This build, just caveat, you'd be fine putting this thing together. It would absolutely work fine. However, I just think we've strayed from our priorities here, and as a result, we've lost quite a bit of performance. What do I mean? Well, let's take a look. I think you got bit by the Lian virus, just like the NZXT virus, the Corsair virus. The Lian virus can be deadly to PC builders, and in this case, we went with a really, really nice case. Don't get me wrong. However, I'm not sure this is appropriate for your budget level. A Lian Landcool 2W. Now, this is a really slick looking all white case, but honestly, not really anything special that you can't get on a lot of other cases. This is primarily you're buying for the aesthetics, and you're spending $210 on this thing. $210. That lops off $200 off your budget. Now you've got $1,000 to spend instead of $1,200 to spend all of a sudden. And I can see that we're trying to go for an all-white aesthetic. There's a couple things I don't really understand. Ryzen 5600X, that's absolutely fine. It's gone back up to $200. I mean, this is where, again, the 7600X is coming out. However, the motherboards for those are probably not going to be as cheap. So I kind of feel 6 of one, half does the other, especially given the 5600X gets quite a bit of performance out of these GPUs. And you went with the Gigabyte B550 Aorus Pro AC. Now, $180 at your budget level. I do like this board. I think there's a great price for the board. I'm just questioning whether or not we need to be spending this much on the motherboard. Because for the graphics card, we went with the RX 6600 XT, and we went with the cheapest one, which is great. We went with a $299 RX 6600 XT. I think you can also find the Power Color Fighter version of it for the same price on Amazon. And overall, great graphics card. However, when we're spending $1,200, I'd love to walk away with a card I felt really good about at 1440p. Not that the RX 6600 XT won't get a 60 FPS at 1440p, that's absolutely, it will. However, could we get a 6700 XT? Could we get a 3060 Ti, especially if we're going to do a lot of productivity kind of video editing work? NVIDIA does tend to be better for that due to their third-party support in a lot of programs like Adobe Premiere. And then I want people to stop doing this. Stop doing this weird drive stuff that I keep saying. So we've got a small little boot drive. I feel like this takes us back 10 years of time. When SSDs were so expensive when they first came out, you get this tiny little SSD for your boot drive and you run Windows on it, and then you get this big hard drive to just kind of do everything else. Well, times have changed. Get with the future. We don't do this anymore. Don't need to do it. You're spending $40 on a 500 gigabyte SSD. That's fine. That's actually a pretty good price. Crucial P2 is a good drive, but I just feel like if we had added the $50 that we're then spending on the 2 terabyte drive, we could have gotten 1 terabyte of space. And I bet you probably could get away with 1 terabyte overall and then add space in the future as you need it. I get that we want like an all white build, but why are we going with a black cooler on this then? There's all white coolers that are actually cheaper than this one. I do recommend the Cooler Master Master Liquid ML240L, generally the V2 version of it, but that's because it usually runs about 60 to 70 bucks. Right now it's like 20 bucks more expensive, and there are some other coolers that are all white we could look at instead. We could even look at just getting an air cooler to save us some money so we can pump up that GPU. I don't mind the power supply. I think it's a little on the expensive side, but absolutely fine for this unit. For the memory, 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3600 CL18 memory, absolutely fine. Really good price right now. Effectively runs the same speed as 3200 CL16, so they're kind of interchangeable, and right now that kit's actually $1 more. So yeah, going with this one was the right choice. But for $1,209, I just feel like we're leaving performance on the table for you here, and we could do so much better, and I think we could even dial up the aesthetics a little bit for you. All right, I call this the 1440p Gaming and Creator PC. I think you're gonna be super happy with what we've done here. We've been able to crank up the performance, and we came in actually under your budget, $1,194. Let's take a look at this build. Let's start off with the CPU. I did try and get you a Ryzen 5700X. I thought about maybe going up to just an i5-12600 non-K CPU, tried some things. I think the 5600X just is where we're gonna end up. If there's a significant enough price difference, go with the 5600 instead. Although the 5600X will give you a little bit more performance, so I did opt to spend the extra $13 on it. But the key here is that we went with the RTX 3060 Ti. Now, I just went with the cheapest 3060 Ti I could find right now, which is $470. Look around for deals. I have seen them around more the 440 mark. However, right now, 470 is what they're going for. The reason I went with this instead of something like even the 6750 XT, which you can get for about the same price. You can decide which of those you're going to get. The 6750 XT or even the 6700 XT, which is $399 right now, is going to give you more gaming performance. However, if you're going to do a lot of editing in Adobe Premiere Pro and other things, then you are going to like using NVIDIA products better just because their third-party support in those programs is better and their hardware just runs a little bit better overall. So if you're going to do a lot of video editing, you will see the difference. If mostly gaming, however, then yeah, go ahead and get a 6750 XT instead. You're gonna get a lot more FPS. Now, in order to save some money, I swapped around a couple of parts. I did try and get you an all-white, all-in-one liquid cooler. However, it wouldn't need another like $50 or $60 instead. So I just came down to an all-white ARGB id cooling SE214 XT. Absolutely great cooler. For $20, this thing is insane value, especially for AM4, especially for a 5600X. It's gonna be all that you need. And I know I continue to push this on Boost My Builds, but the Gigabyte X570 Aorus Elite has just been on fire sale forever, and this is a good motherboard. Yes, I'm not a fan of the proprietary chipsets on these, which is the little fan down here, but overall for $129, it's got Gen 4 everywhere. Not that you need it for what you're doing, maybe at some point for creator workloads, but it's got ALC 1200 audio on it. Yes, is it a step down from the B550 Aorus Pro AC? Yes, in terms of the audio and other things. However, to balance it out and get you a better GPU, I think it's a really good compromise, especially when we take into account that we've got you 32 gigabytes of memory. I almost just said, let's start with 16 and see where you go from here. But then I decided, listen, DDR4 memory is so cheap right now. It may not continue to be this cheap because we are moving towards DDR5. So I figured, let's just go ahead and take advantage of some of these rock bottom prices right now and get you all white ARGB 32 gigabyte kit, 2x16 gigabyte kit, DDR4 3200 CL16. Absolutely insane value for 110 for 8 RGB memory. This stuff is really awesome. I use it in one of my systems here. I did decide to go ahead and get you a slightly faster Gen 3 SSD that's more in the prosumer level if you're going to be doing a lot of writes. And listen, it's only $84, so we didn't even come up that much over your 500 gigabyte drive, and we got you a higher performance drive and 1 terabyte of space. But for the case, I wanted to stick with something awesome and all white. We went with the Corsair iQ 4000X, right now on absolute super sale over at Newegg, but also available at Amazon for like $125, not that much more. Comes with 3 included ARGB fans, and we're gonna get 1 fan for the rear I/O as well that's gonna match the fan on your cooler. Gonna be a really, really nice addition. For the power supply, I just found an EVGA G5, a 650 watt all modular unit. I believe this is B tier rated for just cheaper than the one that you were gonna get, so $60 total. And then we're gonna throw in an additional id cooling ARGB snow fan, very similar to the one that's gonna be on the cooler itself, so those will match. So for $1,194, we got you a much faster GPU that's also gonna work really, really well with things like Adobe Premiere Pro and a lot of video editing. We got you 32 gigabytes of memory. We got you an all white aesthetic that's gonna look super clean in this thing. Overall, more performance. So I hope you feel like your build is boosted. Remember, if you got value out of the video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. Of course, if you're wondering what I would build right now, check out this video where we go through all the best builds in fall, from $600 builds all the way up to 4K amazing builds that I do right now. And we'll catch you on the next one.